Everyone asks what you eat on carnivore, but the real secret is what you don't eat. Everybody, welcome to episode 3 of the Meet the Truth podcast. I'm Jason Barrett, the carnivore pharmacist, and today I want to focus on the don't list. Now, just in case you're wondering how I came onto this way of life and this diet, I invite you to go back and watch episode 1 where I give my full story. I'll give you just a quick rundown. Essentially, I got pretty sick myself while I was already a pharmacist, and for a decade plus, I saw numerous specialists. I took dozens of medications. I was extremely compliant. Went all the way to the Mayo Clinic. Continued to get worse and worse until I was told I may not be around much longer. That made me desperate. I was desperate for answers. I was desperate for relief. I was desperate to try to save my life. And so I started trying things that were outside my comfort zone. Maybe if I thought they were crazy and preposterous, like the carnivore diet sounded to me at the time. But let me tell you, it absolutely turned my life around. It got to the source of my problems. It reduced that inflammation. And now I haven't even had a rheumatologist for years. I don't take a single medication, not even a baby aspirin for inflammation. And I haven't felt this good since I was a teenager. So anyway, back to if you missed that, go back and watch episode 1. But let's get back to today's episode where we're going to talk about the don't list. Um, a lot of people think that this just sounds so restrictive, this diet, but it's really not about restriction. It's about subtraction. You're cutting out the junk that's been making you sick, but you're leaving in the part that your body can actually utilize and thrive on. It works not just because of the meat, but because of the elimination of everything else. And we're going to focus on that today. So let me give you the quick list of what you don't eat on this diet. Processed and ultra processed garbage, seed oils, sugar, grains, artificial sweeteners, food additives and coloring agents, excessive carbohydrates, fiber, plant toxins and anti-nutrients. That's a short list, but I'm going to throw in a few bonus things that are not included on this diet that I think you'll appreciate. Let's dive into each one of these just in a little bit more detail so that we can get the full picture here. So processed and ultra processed foods, what are they? By definition, what they are is basically it's something that started off as a whole food, as a single ingredient food, whether it be a meat or a fish or a protein or a vegetable or a fruit or whatever it may be. It was something that was a single ingredient. They've torn it down to however small of a component that they want to, and then essentially they've used that, mixed it with a whole bunch of stuff, glued it back together, and by the time you have this product that's been processed, now it has an extra long shelf life, and the coloring is perfect, and it has the right crisp, and it has the right sweetness or whatever they're going for added to it. And let's just be honest, why would a company want to do that? Well, if a food company wants to be the most profitable, then they're going to want to make something that's going to have a long shelf life. Would you rather make a product that's going to last 3 weeks or 3 years? And so it's in their best interest to make things that not only can they make, but they will last. The problem is all those additives are not helping. You are not helping. Go get the whole food versions of those things. Add seasonings or whatever if you want to cook it in your own kitchen, and you're going to be much better off than buying the processed final product. Seed oils. Seed oils are in everything these days, and these seed oils it's becoming more and more known. I mean, it's no longer a secret, but they are so pro-inflammatory, and they're in so many different things. Why? Again, it comes down to cost. They're cheap. They're easy for companies, to not have to spend a whole lot into, but to add these oils in there. But they cause a ton of oxidative stress. They feed chronic inflammation, especially if you have any sort of gut problem at all. And the removal of those is huge. I mean, if that was all you did from today's episode, if you just remove those from your diet and keep eating whatever you're eating, I can almost guarantee you're going to notice a huge improvement when it comes to inflammation. Sugar. There's no sugar in the carnivore diet. To me, it's the number one modern drug. And the reason I say that is it's basically the sweetest tasting poison on the planet. And trust me, nobody likes sugar more than me. I mean, not only do I not have a healthy relationship with sugar, I'm pretty sure it's a food addiction, because here's the thing. Now that I've been carnivore for almost 6 years, those sugar cravings have no power over me anymore unless Like, I don't want them at all. But if you put a cookie in front of me and I decide to take a bite, one bite of it, one bite, I have no idea what goes on, but it awakens this sugar monster inside of me. And now I want every carb in sight. Give me 10 pounds of any carb on the planet. And that includes desserts, but that includes pizza and ice cream and French fries and all these things that are just laden with carbohydrates and sugar. And so the removal of that is huge, not to mention your blood sugar and insulin and all the other cascading effects that can come from having high insulin and high glucose. Those are gone. Those are gone. And so it really lets your body just stabilize, lower that inflammation. Since you don't have these sugar spikes and these insulin spikes that follow that, you don't have that midday crash where you had the sugar rush and then the 2 o'clock crash where you can barely keep your eyes open. On Carnivore, you'll just notice that your energy is not only high, but it's flat and it's consistent, and you don't have that midday crash. It's very noticeable, especially if you've gone quite a while and not experienced that. Grains, wheat, corn, and rice, some of these are gut disruptors. They cause inflammation. And the thing is they're very high on the glycemic index. They got a ton of starch in them. Wheat has gluten. Well, not all. Grains. There's gluten. Some people think that gluten is only found in wheat, but it's actually, there's rice gluten. There's glutens in other grains as well, and those can be problematic to your gut. Not to mention, just think about it. Like, if we know this is common knowledge. Let's say you had a pig or a cow and you wanted to fatten it up. And it's out on pasture eating grass. What are you going to do? You're going to give it some additional grains. It makes them fat. What do you think's going to happen if they're a heavy component of your diet? The same thing's going to happen. And anytime fat starts going up, it increases your risk of so many other metabolic problems that it's just not worth messing with. So the removal of those, huge again. Artificial sweeteners. These are fake chemicals. They can kill some of your good friendly microbes that are living in your microbiome. These bacteria that have been around for billions of years, and they've gotten really efficient at being able to break down almost any type of food on the planet. They don't know what these artificial things are because they're relatively new. We just came out with them, and recently, if you look at the grand timeline of the history of the Earth, they don't know what to do with them. They're not doing you any favor, and it's an artificial sweetener. It's basically, the point of doing it is so that you get that sweet taste without getting the sugar spike and not causing an insulin release. But the thing is when they go in and they're disrupting the microbiome, and a lot of time, I don't know if you're like me, but if I have artificial sweeteners, just the thought of the sweetness makes me crave carbs or sugar more than if I just drank regular water or coffee or whatever it may be that just doesn't have any sugar in it. The next thing is food additives and coloring agents. Honestly, these are only added so that the food will look prettier, it'll look more appealing, it'll have it goes to the crisp. They're putting it in there for a reason. They're not just adding stuff in there for nothing. They're making that final product polished and more desirable. And honestly, they research this to where what they're looking for is the bliss point. And it's to where when it hits your tongue, it is instantly pleasing. It's almost, just like, this is so good. You get a huge dopamine hit. And because of that, it's very similar to like a drug, to be honest with you. And so it can become addictive. And not only that, but you're just adding unnecessary chemicals that your liver is going to have to detox. You're adding stuff in that's just making it harder on your liver. It's not doing anything good for you. It's not. It's actually taking away from whatever the nutritive qualities of that food would have been without the additives. Excessive carbohydrates, this kind of goes back to the sugar thing, but not just sugar, anything high in starch, like rice and potatoes and bread and pasta. Even if you're not having any sugar and no desserts, if you're having an excessive amount of those, it's going to cause glucose, hyperglycemia. It's going to cause hyperinsulinemia, to where your insulin levels are going to stay higher. And if this is something that you're doing on a consistent basis and insulin is present a lot, then what happens, you've heard this term, insulin resistance. It's essentially like the boy who cried wolf. When insulin is just screaming, we got high blood sugar, we got high blood sugar, we got high blood sugar, and the cells every day are uptaking the glucose and trying their very best to reduce this glucose. But then after a while, it just keeps coming. essentially they don't work as well. Insulin hits the receptor, but now it's that cell is, those receptors have become resistant to the insulin, and that's where a whole ton of like diabetic medications, what those do is those try to increase insulin sensitivity to make insulin work better, or various ways to make it stay around longer or whatever. But without those excessive carbohydrates, the blood sugar roller coaster won't happen. Again, you go back to that constant, that flat, stable energy. Another one that's on the don't list, fiber. Fiber. Now, I know what you're thinking because I used to think the same, but I can tell you confidently now. The first thing I thought is I'm going to be immediately constipated. Like, this is going to be the worst thing ever. I've been on the carnivore diet for almost 6 years now. Not 6 years now. Not one day have I been constipated on this diet. So I thought it was absolutely essential. But what I can tell you is this: if you're someone, especially if you're someone who has any sort of a gut, a known gut problem, or if you've got an autoimmune condition that has resulted in chronic inflammatory, symptoms, or a condition, or maybe an autoimmune diagnosis that's in line with that, whatever, this fiber, it's often irritating to the lining of the gut, because if your gut's already compromised and you already have leaky gut, or you already have something going on there, when it goes through, it can actually irritate it further, increasing inflammation. Yeah, you're going to have to go to the bathroom still more often just because there's more fiber going through, but it's not helping. It's actually making the problem worse. So in the absence of fiber, sometimes your gut gets that break that it needs to heal itself. And so that's another thing that's not there. Another one is, on the don't list, plant toxins and anti-nutrients. And I'll just touch on a few of these real quick. First of all, plant toxins. Let's stop right there for a second. Why would plants produce toxins? Let's think about it. Over the evolution of the planet, we've had plant life and we've had animal life, botany and biology. And for animals, we have evolved to where we can either fight or flight. We've got arms and legs and teeth and claws and talons and all these other things that will either allow us to fight you if you threaten us, come at us, or get away. We'll run away, we'll fly away, we'll escape to survive another day. But plants, they're kind of at a disadvantage since they're rooted in the ground. They can't go anywhere. So what have they resorted to instead? Chemical warfare. It's the only thing they can. They have to try to deter things. Now, this is a well-known fact. There are there's a multitude of plants out there that if you ate them, they would immediately kill you. Well, when we're talking about like pharmaceuticals, a lot of these have plant origins where, yeah, if you ate that plant or whatever in its raw form, it could kill you, but at the appropriate dose, it can be made therapeutic. And so a lot of these drugs are derived from that. I mean, and even just certain, let's just think about like THC and nicotine and some of these other, things that are just commonplace these days. Those are all those have plant origins. And so when you're removing those, it's definitely going to have a noticeable effect, especially if your body's sensitive to them and it's toxic to your body at all. I'll just name a few. You got oxalates, you've got lectins, you've got phytates, and you've got tannins. Let me talk about a couple of those real quick. So when it comes to oxalates, a lot of people, they're eating foods that are high in oxalates, and your body's not very good at clearing oxalates is the thing. A lot of times what it tries to do is store them away because it can't really get rid of them the way it wants to. Well, when you go without oxalates, like say you start carnivore, what's very common in a lot of people after a month or two being on the diet, and it happened to me, so I'm speaking from experience here, is usually your body will get rid of those oxalates through the skin. And so for me, it was actually on both of my arms, on the outsides of my upper arms. It looked like I was like peeling from a sunburn or something, but I knew I hadn't sunburned, and I'm like, why am I peeling? And then I found out that it was oxalate dumping. And I've seen it happen thousands of times. I mean, it's not always on your arms. It could be on your face. It could be on your abdomen. It could be on your arms or legs. Who knows? I will say this is it's your body's way of getting rid of it. It's passing it through the skin and it's just flaking off and it's gone. And usually after a short time, that'll go away and it'll subside and it's gone. And that's huge. Another thing is a lot of kidney stones are formed from oxalic acid, which are, that's oxalate based. And so A lot of times those can, there's just an end result that you're not going to have to deal with if you're not getting a ton of oxalates in your diet. Another big one is phytates or phytic acid. A lot of nuts, any kind of nut that comes from a tree or whatever, are high in phytates or phytic acid, and that's classified as an anti-nutrient. What that means is, like, the definition of an anti-nutrient is when it goes through your body, instead of giving nutrients and vitamins and minerals, it actually goes through almost like a sponge, and it pulls vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that you've already absorbed from something, and it pulls them out of you. It actually leaves you more depleted than you were, and that's just not a good thing. Think about that. There's the don't list. Now here's a few bonuses. I told you I was going to throw a few in here. Now these aren't actually like foods, but these are just a few more bonuses that are on the don't list. What you'll lose is the endless need of label reading, having to read all the labels. When you're eating single ingredient foods, are you really going to pick up a carton of eggs and go, what are the ingredients in here? Eggs. Oh, you're going to pick up a fresh cut of beef. What's the ingredients? Beef. It's one word. That's it. There's nothing there. And so it saves a ton of time from having to go down aisle after aisle reading all these labels and seeing all these different things that we just talked about being in there, and having to go, oh, I want this, but it's got 17 different things in it. Why did they have to put all this stuff in here? Let me go find a whole food. Let me go find a single ingredient thing, and I'll just take it home, and I'll add whatever I want to it, but at least I know what's in there. So it gets rid of that. Calorie counting on carnivore. Here's the thing. I honestly don't, especially for the first month or two, you don't, I didn't count my calories, and let me tell you, it's one of the most satisfying and satiating diets on the planet. You're not going to overeat on this thing. Because when you get full eating this type of meat, let's say beef, butter, bacon, eggs, let's say that's what you went with. When you get full, you're not just going to be like, man, you know what? Give me another pound of beef. You're not. When you get full, not only are you full, but you're well satiated, and you can go usually, if you got adequate calories, you can probably go 8 to 10 hours without even being hungry or wanting to eat again. Whereas, let's go back to the carbs for a second. What happens if you eat, chips and queso? You're full because your belly is stretched, not because you actually are full because your body's saying stop eating. But what happens after an hour or two? You're hungry again. And not only are you hungry again, you want more of that because it was so good and so addictive, and it's not filling. And now you're being run by cravings instead of hunger. And so what that does, it separates hunger from cravings. Big distinction there. I never knew what that was until carnivore. And then the last one is just the guilt. The guilt from either trying to count your calories and overeating by 500 calories, or the guilt from falling victim to a craving that was so powerful. Oh, I don't want to eat that donut, but it looks so good, but I don't want to eat it, but it looks so, and bam, you take one bite, and before you know it, you've eaten half the box, because that's how it goes. And then you feel guilty about it. What's funny, going back to the calorie counting thing on carnivore, I've talked to, so many hundreds or thousands of people at this point, and even without counting calories, even if they increased their calories over the long term, their metabolic health improves and they still lose weight. It's crazy, So those are a few bonuses that you also don't have to do. Kind of makes it a lot easier and simpler. So, when you strip away all the junk the body can heal, you're taking away all the toxins, you're taking away all the unnecessary things, you're taking away the things that are actually subtracting from your health and not helping you, and you're keeping the essentials there. To me, it's the simplest elimination diet there is. If you want it to be as simple as beef, salt, and water, it could be. If you want it to be the entire scope of carnivore, which could be any sort of animal protein, including any sort of fish, poultry, venison, bison, beef, lamb, elk. The list goes on on that side. Eggs, fish, dairy, butter, all these different things. You've got a pretty long list. Go for it. Go for it. What I would recommend is, after you've been on the diet for a few months, you may start trying a few variations to see if there's one you thrive on. For instance, I'm more sensitive than probably most people just because I have a ton of gut sensitivities, but I don't handle smoked meats as well, which I hate because I love smoked meats. And I still have them from time to time because I still do better on those than not doing carnivore, but I don't do as well on those. Don't do as well when I eat dairy, and I hate that too because I love dairy. But for me, I don't do as well. Now, butter's different. Usually I can do butter, but the rest of the dairy, your milk and your yogurts and your cheese and stuff like that, I don't do as well on those, so I've cut those out. And actually, I don't do as well on pork as I do on beef or other like lamb or venison, the red meats. And so play with that. If you can tolerate it all, eat it all, go crazy. It works not just because of what you eat, but because of what you don't eat. That's what we've been talking about. In fact, it's more so because of what you don't eat. You're giving your body adequate nutrition. You're giving it everything it needs. It's getting all the essential amino acids. It's getting all the essential fatty acids, and it's getting minerals and vitamins and nutrients, and it's getting plenty of calories. And that's it. It's giving you the essentials, and it's removing anything else that could be problematic. That's why I say it's the simplest and most powerful elimination diet that there is. Seed oils, they're just toxic sludge. Like I said, if that's all you do from today, if you're not ready to go fully carnivore, get rid of the seed oils. Just start paying attention to seed oils. Get rid of them. If you need fats, if you need oils, I would stick to animal fats. Butter, ghee, tallow, lard. Those go a long way, and they're absolutely, they taste great, and they're good for your health, and they don't have any of the stuff that the seed oils have in there. Cut the trash, and your body finally works the way it was designed to work. Your body knows how to heal itself. Your body wants to be efficient. It wants to thrive. It wants to have high energy. It wants you to sleep well. It doesn't want bad things to happen to you. It doesn't want your health to suffer. But when it's being inundated, even if you think you're eating healthy, if a lot of these things are going in and it's toxic to your body, and it's affecting your microbiome, or it's affecting your blood sugar, or it's affecting your inflammation or the lining of your gut or your microbiome or whatever, it's going to have an effect on you. And removing the problem will allow your body to do that magic. The magic's not in the meat. The magic is in what your body can do in the absence of everything else. So what do you gain when you cut out the junk? Let me tell you. Energy, clarity, confidence, and utmost freedom. Freedom. You get that freedom. You're in control now. You know that you feel good, and you can't be told that you don't. You can't be told. If you feel good and you have high energy and you're optimistic and everything's clicking and you feel like living, can anybody come in and tell you that you're lying? No. You know the truth. You can't be told. So what I would say is, if you're curious, give yourself at least 30 days. I talked about this on a previous episode, but don't just do it for 3 or 7 days or whatever, or just a week or two, because early on, depending on where you were metabolically to begin with, early on, the first couple of weeks, it could actually get a little bit worse before it gets better. And that's because a lot of things are happening depending on where you were metabolically before. Number one, there's a bunch of electrolyte shifts going on because your body's changing the whole way that it's running. It's having to get adapted to using fat as fuel instead of being very dependent on carbohydrates and sugar. Whenever it's having to go through all these changes, you're going to notice, energy dips, and you may feel low energy. You may have a slight headache. If you're going to do that, what I would recommend during those first couple of weeks is make sure you're staying well hydrated. Get plenty of salt in those first couple of weeks, because again, your body's going through some major shifts. Your microbiome is changing because it hasn't been used to eating this new diet. It's been used to getting all these carbs and this fiber and this sugar and maybe something else that wasn't helping anything. Those microbes are going to have problems. They're going to start dying off, and as they do, they're not going to go down without a fight. They're going to release some toxins. You're not going to feel like $1,000,000 right there at the very beginning. So give it at least 30 days. Subtract the foods that don't belong in your body. I've seen lives change, mine included. Yours can too, especially if you're someone who suffers from any sort of chronic inflammation. I can't stress that enough. Chronic inflammation is the doorway for so many other diseases, whether it be autoimmune or whether it be whatever. Inflammation is the root of these things, and carnivore is so powerful at reducing inflammation. So anyway, guys, until next time, keep seeking the truth, keep seeking health, keep eating meat, And I'm going to end on this, guys. This is one thing that I noticed along the way and I learned, and I fully believe nothing tastes better than good health. Guys, if you like this message, please subscribe, please share. If there's anybody that needs to hear it, tell them all about it. If you want to contact me, I'll put a way to contact me in the description below. And until next time, guys, stay good.